Welcome, family. I'm here. This is Brother George from the Black Secret here with Dr. Gina Paige from African Ancestry. How you doing?
I'm great. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, fantastic. So this is the first time that you've been to the UK, or you've been here previously?
Well, so when I was in college, I studied in France and we came to London one weekend, but I don't
Right.
think that really counts. So, yeah,
Okay.
this is my first official time being here.
First official time. Great, fantastic. For those who are not aware, and for our Black Secret audiences, can you give us a little introduction as to who you are and what African Ancestry does?
Mhm. I am the president and co-founder of AfricanAncestry.com.
Mm,
We are an identity company. We use technology to help people understand who they are. And we do that through DNA. So our mission is to help Black people around the world transform the way we view ourselves and the way we view Africa.
right,
And we do that by using DNA to reconnect the diaspora to the specific present day African countries and ethnic groups that we share ancestry with.
right. Okay. Now, there are many different sort of like DNA sort of like companies out there, but
Mhm.
you guys are a little bit different. I know you mentioned a little bit about that. Could you give us specifically
Sure.
what's different about African
Mhm.
Ancestry compared to, the others?
Yep. So African Ancestry is the pioneer of genetic ancestry tracing for Black people. So we've been in business long before there was an Ancestry DNA or 23andMe. Um, there was one company out of the UK called, I think it was called Relative Genetics. They were in business when we started. But none of these DNA companies were interested in helping Black people with the question of identity. And we have a unique position because we are the original victims of identity theft. And
Right.
so we don't know our names, our languages, our ancestors,
Mhm.
our families. And so African Ancestry is different, one, in our mission. We use single lineage testing. So we trace one branch of the family tree at a time to get very specific, like I said, to a country and a group. We are the only Black owned company in the industry. We have the largest database of African genetic lineages in the industry. So our closest competitor might have 1,500, 2,000 African lineages.
Mhm.
We have over 30,000.
And what kind of difference does that make? Because that's quite a huge difference there.
Mm-hmm. So the size of your database impacts the specificity of your results.
Mm.
So all of this work hinges on taking one DNA sequence and comparing it to another.
Right.
Well, if you have 1,000 to compare it to, then you're only going to have 1,000 choices
Right.
of an outcome or of a result. But when you have 30,000,
Hmm.
you have 30 times more
Right.
chances to get an answer. And so that's the way I could explain it most simply.
Yeah.
Also, it depends on how different the samples in your database are. So our data comes from 35 countries on the continent, mostly West and Central Africa. That's intentional because the question we're answering is, where were my ancestors before the transatlantic slave trade?
Right.
And we know, as does everyone who is part of the Black Secret Education Project, that our ancestors primarily came from West and Central Africa.
Yeah.
The other way that we're different is that we don't sell or share our customers' DNA.
Right. Now, that was news which you shared with us and our various partners as well. I thought, on the one hand, I'm not surprised that business moves that way, that, other firms are doing that. On the other hand, it is a bit shocking that, people are taking advantage of what is really people celebrating finding out about their ancestry from whatever background they are, and yet the information is utilized and used in this way without their knowledge.
Yeah. Well, there are terms and conditions, and you can opt out, but nobody reads the terms and conditions.
Right.
And so it's not really without people's knowledge. They could know, they just choose not to read and be informed.
Right.
The interesting part about being a Black-owned business in the industry is that the same people who don't read the terms and conditions of the other companies scrutinize ours.
Okay.
But, that's just a function of how we operate
Well, one
as
day
Black
our
consumers.
ice will be as cold as the others. It already is.
Yes.
But people will recognize that.
Yes.
You mentioned that your database in terms of like your samples in Africa are far more extensive than the others. I know your partner is Dr. Rick Kettles.
Mm-hmm.
He's the scientific side of this. How long did it take to establish such an extensive database? How much work was involved with that?
So Dr. Kittles, who is our scientific director, he collaborated with researchers across the continent to collect DNA from people on the continent. At that time, it was blood. They were collecting blood.
Right.
Because we've been in business 20 years, and he had been collecting the DNA for 12 years before that.
Right.
So it took quite a long time for him to compile to compile a significant size database, and then to test it to make sure that the results that we were giving were accurate.
Right. So it was like 12 years in the making before you even launched the company as such. Wow. That's amazing. That's real dedication there. But the company it's been running for 20 years. So it's 20 years of actually helping people connect them back to their African roots.
Yeah.
That is a real milestone and a real success. How does it feel to accomplish that milestone?
Exhausting.
Okay.
It feels, I'm certainly proud of it. The average, at least in the United States, the average business small business doesn't last 3 years. So when you make it to 3 years, you've done something. When you make it to 5 years, you've defied the odds. When you make it to 10 years, you continue to defy the odds. So we're in a very select minority of companies, Black-owned or even non-Black-owned, that have reached this milestone. And so that is definitely something to be proud of.
Absolutely.
We're very small. So I feel like I felt every single one of those 20 years. So that's why I jokingly said exhausting, because we have met with resistance every single year. Like it never gets easier.
Can you elaborate on what you mean by resistance? In what form does that take?
Sure. So when we first started, no one else was doing this. There were other people studying the genetics and ancestry, but they weren't studying Black people.
Right.
And so the scientific community kept demanding that we share our database.
Okay.
But that's not how business works.
No.
You don't share your core competency. No. And so my business partner, as a geneticist, met with a lot of criticism and from the majority scientific community, who was trying to do the work but couldn't.
Right.
So it's not like they didn't believe it was possible. They just didn't want him to be able to accomplish it. Right. So that's some resistance. Then there's the resistance from Black people, because imagine 20 years ago, we're talking about 2003, DNA was not used in any positive way for us historically.
Right.
I'm sure you all have studied things like the Tuskegee experiment, or even, the present day focus on Henrietta Lacks and how her genetics have been used and how she was abused.
Yes.
And we all benefit from that today. And the family, until recently, had not ever been compensated. And so the only positive things we would see were when people were incarcerated, people were exonerated based on DNA. So it wasn't familiar. So there was resistance from Black people, like, I'm not giving you my DNA. So there's that. There's still that.
Yes.
And then, you know, while there is a significant part of the community that wants to know where they're from, there is still part of our community that doesn't believe we're from Africa, doesn't want to be from Africa, doesn't care about where they're from in Africa.
I wasn't going to go there, but yes.
But you asked the question, and that's part of the answer. So
Sure. Yeah.
That's been part of it. And then this isn't really this isn't resistance, but it's a form of, it's a challenge, is as other companies entered the industry, they saw our impact and then started marketing heavily to our consumer target.
I see.
Even though they don't give the same information. So because they have more money, because they were well-funded and still don't have to be profitable, they've never turned a profit, they've been able to control the narrative about what's important and what you should want to know as a Black person about who you are. And so that has created a form of resistance because their tests are less expensive. Okay. And so our customers want to know why our test costs so much, when our test is completely different, when those companies are basically offering selling the tests as loss leaders. They're not making any money off of those tests.
Really?
They're making money off of the research and sale of your DNA that you give them.
Wow.
When you spend $99 or whatever, $129 with them. And so that all of those factors have made it very difficult as a small business to compete. However, having said all of that, we're still here after 20 years. And so what that says to me, when you ask how does it feel, I have come to the conclusion that we are very clearly doing the ancestors' work, and that they want us to know who they are. And so they're making a way for us to continue to serve our community.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. I think the work that you're doing is fantastic. Obviously, with the Black Secret, our focus on history, there's a lot of connectivity there. But I just want to ask you, it's been 20 years. This is the 20-year tour. You're in the UK. We're actually in the V&A at the moment. But last week, we had the London UK leg of the African Ancestry tour. Now, we knocked it out the park. It was a full house. London represented.
Yes.
You know, we had a blast. We had a real celebration. I just want to ask you, obviously you've been traveling all over the world, different countries, different continents. What has been the highlights of this tour so far? And have there been any surprises?
Ooh, no one's asked me that question yet. So let's see. Okay, so I can answer that. One of the highlights has been seeing the community excited in real time, in person, about the work.
Right.
So we send tests out. It's rare that we get to meet the people who are part of the African Ancestry family.
Yeah.
And so that has been a highlight, because when you throw an event, you don't ever know if anyone's going to come. The majority of our events are free. And so with a free event, you're really even less comfortable with how many people will. So to have full houses every time we've been in a city has been heartwarming. Wow. Another highlight has been when people come to the events, and it even happened here in London, with their certificate of ancestry or with their letter, to see how important this is to them. Like, we know it's important, and we have our own ideas about what it means, but to actually see it is very humbling.
Yeah.
And then I would say another highlight is just that we have, this isn't a highlight, but the other exciting thing about it is to go to these different cities and see the same level of excitement.
Wow.
I've never been here, really, for all intents and purposes. I've never been here, so I didn't know what to expect. And the community here was just as welcome and opening and
there were a lot
supportive.
of people who actually knew about African ancestry as well, you know, who were here because they knew of you.
Yeah.
So, you know, that the family's over here as well. Which countries did you visit?
We visited Cameroon.
Yeah.
We visited Sierra Leone, and we visited Ghana.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So in those cities, obviously, they weren't, you know, people already knew where they were from. But we did encounter occasionally people who were expats who would come together with us to celebrate and engage. And so it was important for us to travel beyond the US. The African travel is part of our African Ancestry family reunions that we do.
Right, yes.
But this is our first time traveling to a diasporan country. And that's important because the work we do is for Black people, and people in 67 different countries have ordered a test from us. And so when we looked at what makes sense, the majority of the people who've purchased a test from us outside of the US has been in the UK.
Right.
And so that's what prompted us to come here.
Well, we're so glad to have you because we had a blast. And also as well, you know, talking about reactions and things that are surprising, we found out that our very own director, Danny Thompson, who's behind the camera now, is a booby.
Well, you know what was surprising about that?
Yeah, he had a couple of boobies.
Yeah, so when I asked, where do you all think he's from, before I did the reveal, I got Cameroon, I got Nigeria, I got Senegal, I got all these countries, and one person said Bioko Island.
Yes.
And I knew that that's what the result was, so I was like, wait, what did you say? And so that was there was actually someone there who has the same result, who could come up and welcome him and celebrate with him.
Yeah, because she was also from Bioko Island as well. So, you know, it was like family.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what this is really all about as well. Just want to ask you as well, because on your bio, and obviously on the day as well, you shared your own ancestry and lineage. How did it feel to find out? Like, because it's on both sides.
Yeah.
It's matrilineal and patrilineal. You are Fulani. What does that feel like to get that confirmation?
Well, you know, it's. I didn't have the same experience as other people because my parents had taken the test from Dr. Kittles almost in the research phase, and I didn't know. So I came to the information a little bit differently. When I knew it, when I got it, we were in the throes of building the company. But over time, as I've told people, as I've learned more about the Fulani, as I've met people who are Fulani, I'm very proud, and it seems to make sense. I mean, you know, the Fulani are nomads. The Fulani have a very strong code of beliefs, a code of behavior that is quite like my personal creed. And someone told me, and I believe this wholeheartedly, that the Fulani women are the most beautiful women in Africa. So I just, you know,
Controversial. Being a can, controversial, but you know what I say? The African women, full stop,
yeah.
are beautiful.
So
We come in all shades, all sizes, all qualities. We've got all kinds of features, all kinds of skin tones, all kind of hair textures. We are a beautiful people. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Now, I want to move on. The work that you guys do obviously helps people connect them to their roots. And I wanted to ask you, here at the Black Secret, we believe that history is fundamental and it makes a big difference to a person's understanding of who they are and what they believe they can do. I wanted to ask you, how do you feel about and how important is it for people to actually know their history generally and their own personal history as well?
it's critical. Like
Okay.
it is critical that people know Black history beyond where they live.
Yeah.
And that they know as much about their family history as possible. One of the reasons our company even exists is because in the United States, when you do genealogy research using written records like family Bibles or census records or military records, all kinds, birth certificates, that kind of thing, when you're Black, you hit a brick wall in the year 1870.
Right.
Black people in America were not recorded as human beings on a federal census until 1870.
Wow.
And so we hit literally a brick wall. There's a brick wall right there.
Yeah.
And so this work exists because there is no other way to know where we come from before. And so if you don't know your grandmother, great-grandmother, great-great-grandfather's names, then you probably don't know how they contributed to their communities. You don't know how they earned a living. You don't know what skills and talents they have that live within you.
Yeah.
And so you don't know, there's missing information about who you are. So that's why your personal history is important, as well as your personal health history is quite important.
Right.
But knowing our collective history is also important because in the absence of us having our family histories, we don't know what our families did before the United States, before Jamaica, before Haiti, before Brazil. And so we are at the mercy of the educational system to teach us, and they don't want us to know.
No.
And so you're starting from behind the starting line when you don't know all of what has been done before you and all of what is possible because of all of that was done before you. And so it's critically important. And the work we do is a tool. It is a component of an entire set of tools available to us personally through the Black Secret Education Project, through other Black historians and scholars, to understand who we are so that we can live beyond our own expectations and our own beliefs.
Yes.
We're limited when we can't see what's possible. I'm on a roll now, but the last thing I'll say is that we also wouldn't have to start over, start from the beginning with so many things. We're recreating the wheel so often because we don't realize that it's already been created for us.
Yes. And before I move on to the next question, about the idea of the pushback, which you were talking about, in particular about certain groups quite strongly in America who don't want to go down the DNA route because they don't believe they've got anything to do with Africa, and they try and avoid that. I think that the work that you're doing over the years, it's a long-standing thing, but I think it's helping to erode that because people have no confidence in Africa, which is one of the reasons why they don't want to be associated with Africa.
Yeah.
But once they start to learn and actually see that, Africa has foundation, it has high societies, civilizations, has been involved with so many inventions and discoveries, that they will start to realize that they don't have to shun Africa. And I think that the work that you're doing is very important in connecting people to specifically this group so that they can research in a more thorough way and have a better grounding and understanding. So thank you very much for the work that you do there.
Thank you. You just reminded me of an elder. He took our tests maybe last year at his daughter's urging. So he's in his early 70s, lives in Georgia, in the United States near Atlanta. And I asked him, did you think about where you were from in Africa before this test? And he said, no.
Wow.
I never learned one thing about Africa. It wasn't in anything I thought about, cared about. I had zero interest in Africa.
Wow.
But then when my daughter asked me to take this test, and now you've told me that this is where I'm from, now I want to learn more.
Wow.
And this is someone who's been living for over 70 years. He
no interest in
none.
Africa.
And he didn't feel bad about it. He was just like, when I grew up, when I was a child, they didn't teach us anything about Africa.
Yeah.
So, and we've also seen people who have tried to get their family members interested, and their family members are like, no, that's you. I don't want to. Nah, you do your thing. And then when they get the results, the family members are like, so what did you say we come from? What group did you say we come from? What country? And so it does have an impact.
Yeah.
It may take a long time.
Yeah. It's resonating. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And one final question. I noticed on your biography, this is something you've not mentioned, but Dr. Gina has been running businesses since she was 8 years old. This is a serial entrepreneur. Now, that's something that really interests us because at the Black Secret, we believe that there are two keys. We, as you know, focus on history and informing people in an in-depth way about the greatness of many different African civilizations. We believe that it's important and that opens the mind and allows people to have an understanding of not only who they are, but what they can do for themselves and their communities as well. The other key is entrepreneurship. We've been running courses on entrepreneurship and economic empowerment as well. And we're going to be launching the Black Secret Business Project, which is going to be focused on that. So I just wanted to ask you, given that, entrepreneurial, that particular kind of like outlook is in the blood, what are your thoughts on the importance of economic empowerment and how can that benefit our communities in the present and moving forward? But tell us about yourself and going back to, what inspired you to go into business at 8 years old?
That's hilarious. So we have amusement parks in the DC area. And when I was 8, whatever year that was, 1970 something, there was a new amusement park. The first amusement park was opening.
Right.
And it cost $5.
Right.
And so my cousin and I were telling our parents, please, will you take us to King's Dominion? And they were like, well, do you have $5? Like, you need to get the $5. And so.
And back in the day, $5 was that's what, about $30 today? Or?
I don't know.
Okay.
I should know, but I don't. Yeah, it's been over 45 years
Right.
So yeah,
So
it's a
about
lot.
$30, $40, something like that. Yeah.
And so we decided to create a magazine.
Wow.
So we created a magazine, we wrote the stories and drew the pictures. And then our parents spent way more than $5 copying it on the Xerox. It wasn't even Xerox, it was mimeograph at that time, making the copies
Okay.
and selling it to their friends. And so we made the $5 each, and we got to go to King's Dominion. And we had lemonade stands and things like that. But my grandparents, grandparents on both sides were business owners.
Okay.
And on my paternal line, their parents were business owners.
Right.
Now, so it was in my DNA to do that without even really realizing it. Like, no one said you should be a business person, but I just really just never wanted to work for anybody else. That was really how I got here. All of my aunts and uncles on my father's side are entrepreneurs. So I have that family structure.
Yeah.
But so I know firsthand how entrepreneurship provides an economic foundation that empowers families, empowers people, empowers families. I think it's important historically that we remember that we were the first assets here.
Right. Yeah.
We were assets. We were assets. We were business people.
Yeah.
As soon as we were able to, we turned our skills that we came here with into ways to earn money to support ourselves and support our families. And so we can do it. And we see the impact when other people do it.
Yeah.
We see how successful they are when they are business owners, and then they have economic empowerment. And so their models are all around us. And that's all you need to understand that it is important for us to determine our own futures. And we created everything.
We certainly did.
So we can sell anything, and we can create we are innovators by birth. That's just our birthright. Innovation is our birthright. And so we have to take advantage of that. Now, everyone's not an entrepreneur.
No.
It's not for everyone.
No.
But we can all play a role. There are so many people who have played a role in the success of African Ancestry as a business without investing $1.
All right.
So for those people who are like, nah, I don't want to start a business, then support someone else who does. So at African Ancestry, one of our core business values is to help build and support Black-owned businesses. So all of our partners are Black-owned businesses.
Right.
The businesses that we purchase from are Black-owned as much as possible.
Okay.
We employ Black people who can then support their families. And so there are lots of ways to contribute to the economic empowerment of a community besides running the business yourself. The best thing you can do, the easiest thing you can do is to patronize Black-owned businesses.
Yes.
Help the entrepreneur. I don't know, buy them some groceries. I'm trying to think of what you need when you're struggling to offer your services.
Yes.
They might need somebody to answer emails. They might need somebody to post on social media. Like, there are ways that you can help the collective entrepreneurship succeed.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Dr. Gina. It's been a pleasure and a revelation. And yeah, absolutely, support African Ancestry.
Wow, I've had a ball this week, and I definitely enjoyed getting to know about the Black Secret Education Project and meeting the kids from the Saturday school. And so I'm looking forward to ways that we can work together in the future. I think it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Of course.
Appreciate it.